Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. I decided to start a new sort of series where we'll be discussing how to play chess and how to learn chess. So the introduction to chess in a way that's hopefully like somewhat fun, entertaining, and articulate, as I often speak too fast and often lose my articulation of words. This will be quite a challenge for me as well as for you guys probably. And as we go along in this series, I hope to improve in my way of speech, in my explanation of chess. Um, Before we start, I should first introduce myself. I'm Wen. On chess.com, I have a rating of 2000 on Rapid, as well as over the board, which means not online. I have a rating of 1824 at the moment, and this has been gained over the past 2 years or so as I started my chess journey there. I also participated in tournaments like the Limburg Open in a pretty high group, so I think I know the rules of the game a little bit, even though I'm by no ways a Hikaru Nakamura. But what I will be showing you guys is not the way to win at chess, but the way to win at life, which is to have fun, enjoy the process. So I don't know why I'm wearing sunglasses, but I hope you guys can enjoy this process with me in some sort of way. And without further ado, let's start with the chessboard. As we can see here, the chessboard, and we'll be beginning with the most basics of basic things, which is the movement of pieces, the game rules, and yeah, let's just get over these boring parts, but very important parts, as we have to know the rules before we can even play the game, as we all need to be on the same page. So yeah, I hope the lighting is good. I hope I'm recording. So let's start with the most important piece of all, which is the king. And the king, let's set up a position, new analysis. The king is a piece that can only move one square at a time. I realize that this might not be the best way to show everything, but let's clear this board and put a king here. The king can move like this. It can move in any direction, but just one square at a time. And why do I say the king is the most important piece? As when the king gets checkmated, which is the whole point of the game. It doesn't matter how many pieces you have. Let's say I have 17 queens in a very wrong position. Uh, a queen is a very important piece. Let's just call it that for now. But if you're in this position, the rooks can move laterally, I'm sorry, and horizontally and vertically. As you can see now, cannot, the king cannot escape anywhere. And even though he's a pimp and has 4 queens, white is still lost as he is being checkmated and the king cannot go anywhere. The line cannot be interfered, like no pieces can go in between. It doesn't matter. My point is, the real thing that matters here in this game is who gets the checkmate move first. And it definitely helps to have more material, but it is not the end of the line. So that's the king. And in the starting position, the king is here. It's very clumped. It doesn't know where to go. It can't go anywhere. So yeah, that's the king. Now let's discuss the other important piece, which is the queen. And the queen is a piece that's essentially the most powerful piece on the board. Like the king, it can move in any direction with any square it wants, uh, any amount it wants. You can think of this as uh, I'm gonna upset a lot of people here, but you can think of this as a man can only move one square at a time, making its way down its road, feeling the agony and pain of being a man. And a gold digger woman can just, hop on right and okay, I should delete this recording. But women can hop on every way it wants. Try to ignore what I just said and try to not cancel me for what I just said. But the queen can hop on rides. It can move in any direction it wants. It can move like this, and this, and it's very flexible this way. Know that both the king and queen cannot hop over pieces. So let's say this is the case, right? All the pieces of white, which are pawns, I don't know how a pawn ended up here, is blocking the way of the queen, so it has no movability. But then the question becomes, can you make it move? Yes. As we just saw, if you move the king, now you make space for the queen. It's like dancing. You have to make space for the woman to show where it can go. A pawn can move upwards. At the first move, it can move up 2 pawns, 2 spaces, sorry, not 2 pawns. And after that, it can only move once. Note that if you move it first, 1 square, you don't have this reservative of moving it twice, the next one. You just keep moving it once. This is to, this rule exists. I don't know why. Um, but as you can see, let's combine some things. As you can see, when you move a pawn, all of a sudden spaces become free for other pieces to move. As a queen cannot hop over pieces, the pawn makes room free for other pieces to move. As well as what we also need to discuss is how pawn takes, as the pawn is the only piece that doesn't take the way it moves. So a pawn can only move forward, but when it wants to take something, it takes it diagonally, which is really, really confusing when you first start with chess. So let's say it's black to move. Black has the same amount of pieces here for now. Let's just not overcomplicate the boards and you just use pieces we both have discussed. And let's say black uses the two-step ability as the first move, right? So every pawn can move up 2 squares on its initial move, and it goes up 2 spaces. The pawn, the white pawn, now has the opportunity to grab this pawn that's just been presented to him like this. That's the way a pawn takes. Now let's say, what do you see? Is there any way for black to recapture the white pawn, as we just discussed? Uh, and should at some point see is not only where the queen is, but the lines of movement the queen is able to do. And when you count all those spaces and look, oh, where are the um, inflection points? Where are the points of conflict? I see this. And then you can start to calculate, okay, if I take, do I blunder my queen? No, this queen is here. It cannot take that, right? This pawn is here. Can only take like this. This pawn can take like this. I'm free to take this pawn. But let's say there's a loop in the hole. Let's say black decides to do this move instead. It moved up 2 spaces, right? Making itself able to surpass this pawn, whilst without the initial two-step rule, it wouldn't be able to, right? So in this case, it's really, really weird. But in this case, there's a rule called Passant. And Passant means that the first move, whilst a pawn has moved up 2 spaces. It could be as well as considered 1 space if a pawn is already on the 5th rank. So let's say he did this. It could be considered as this for the pawn, only for the pawn, that you can take like this. So in this case, you would take like this and take the pawn with you. And that's called M-peasant. And now white is up 3 pawns. And you might think, what is this stupid rule? Well, let me explain. So, in those good old times, you know, when people get into endgames and basically um, black is trying to promote, which means get to the end of the line. Black is moving this way, white is moving this way. And let's say it's white to move. There is a possibility, or there were instances where, black has the upper hand, has a lot of space. White is all crammed down. It's white to move, and oh, boom, all of a sudden, you know, white is winning. Okay, white is probably not winning, but let's say, oh, he moves here, here, and black is not promoting as white is covering those spaces, right? Let's say, it, let's say this happens and this happens. This is a check as you're attacking the king, but as previously discussed, the white king can move in any direction, but also take in any direction. So he can take this pawn. Let's say he doesn't do that. This was the position, and he just moves around. Look at this. The pawn is running, and it moves it to the end of the line, and oftentimes it would happen, and everyone got sick of this. Like, oh, look at me making progress in the position, right? In this position, look at me. I have spent one, two, three, or 2 moves doing this and spending all my time getting my king up here from somewhere, right? And then you just insult me with this move, and that's why they invented en passant, getting rid of this pawn. And online, this would look like the following. So if you do that, flip analysis board. So if you would do it in a real game, and we do this, you take diagonally. So you all of a sudden you see this possibility of to move like this. You take, and now, not like this, because I'm really bad at endgames apparently. But after moving around and moving around, it's white to move. White only has one legal move, as you cannot move into this square because then the king would take. You cannot give yourself a check, so to say. A check means when the king is attacked by another piece of your opponent. So that's not legal. So you go out of the way. Note that if I promote now, you can promote to any piece you want, but queen or a knight, the king would be able to take that piece. So the king needs to be edging towards it. And now white has to make a move, and black can safely promote. Notice that if the king was still there, in this position, note that if the king was still there, you can now not take, as if you take, the king would be able to retake the king, which is not allowed in this game. So yeah, that's the introduction of 2 pieces we discussed now. We learned that there are the following pieces: pawns, kings, and queens, right? Pawn, kings and queens. And we have yet to discuss three more pieces. But knowing how pawn moves, knowing that if the pawn gets to the end of the line, um, then it can promote to a queen or any piece you want. Is already huge help. Knowing what pawn means, which is when a pawn moves, and knowing that pawns take diagonally, already a big step. As pawns are often the sword in game, this is considered to be an endgame, and oftentimes in endgames, the difference is shown between the good and the better guys, if that makes sense. We also learned that queens can move any direction they want, and what I have yet to introduce are checks. So, a check is when the king, in this case the black king, is attacked by an opponent piece. And to attack the king, you have to look for checks. A check is basically when that happens, right? As I previously discussed. So when I look here and I look at my pieces, as we previously seen, we opened up the queen by moving that pawn that was up here. We opened up a line for the queen, and after this happens, the pawn moved away from the E line, right? It took. So now this is open. And now we can give a check. So when a check happens, black has to respond to this. Black cannot move a pawn because he's in check. If he moves his pawn, he would be taken. The king would be taken on the next move, and that's not allowed. Then you would lose the game. So black has to move. Black has to either move away with the king somewhere, put a piece interfering the attack on the king. That would be this. Or take the piece, if possible. Let's say there was a black queen. Let's say the queen was already here. It will be able to take the piece that is currently attacking the king. Those three things um, should be done when a king is in check. Now that we have discussed check, there's also mate, right? So let's continue this game. Let's hypothetically say we are pawn up the board. Black moves the pawn up the board. White pawn up the board. There's very symmetrical structure. This is a pawn structure. And, you know, white and black keep looking ways to annoy each other. Black just made this move to attack this pawn. In defends that by defending it like this. So now it's no longer attacked, but also left some space behind. So again, queen a1. First thing I see, because it gives a check. And let's take this check. And white makes the mistake and puts it up here where it's undefended. Queen can simply take. A much better move would probably be to put it here, as now the take would be followed by take. But you don't need to take. But also, yeah, you lose this pawn. Another check. So maybe not even the best move. The best move would probably be the king up. So you have to consider these things in your calculation. But that's a bit more. That's not for today. Let's say I blunder the queen. Check. I move up the board. Notice it's not over yet. Again, it's about checkmate. You have to checkmate. So, you have pawns. I have pawns. I have king. You have king. And there's a queen there. So, what basically happens is, okay, the engine says made in 10. This is what it means, made in 10. Hashtag -10. Minus stands for that the advantage lies at black side. But made in 10, I don't see the made in 10, but I see that black is winning because he has a queen. This bitch is single forever. He has them queens, right? Let's give a check. King moves here. And basically, you can try certain stuff, and hope for the best. You would not maybe see this. Um, and try to hope right there. But no. Um, again, pawns can take diagonally, and maybe he doesn't know. Does he see? Does he see? Um, so again, back to sorry. What happens? Back to this position. Let's say he does see and takes the pawn. The queen can move and take in. Notice that the queen can take the direction he or she wants. Goes here. We have to find a way to mate him. So the king moves, and the most easy way to do that is to promote another pawn if possible. So he has literally nothing to do. Like if I push this pawn, he takes, right? I'm just moving around, moves forward. And now, after white has made a move, we can promote to another piece. Let's take another queen. White has only one legal square. It's easier online as you don't have to think about it and the squares get shown to you. If he is in check, he has to move. There's no piece that can interfere this line. There's no piece that can take this because it's only me and my pawns here. And after here, we can see, okay, this is controlled by this queen. And if I find a way to control both this, and this, whilst attacking the king, then I made him. So now it's game over. The king can literally not move anywhere. This queen cannot be taken as protected by another queen. Let's say I can take this queen. Let's say it was allowed, then the queen would take the king and you would still be lost. So that's why it ends here. This is the basic introduction to chess for me for now. We've discussed how the king moves, how the queens move, the pawns, which is a very hard topic usually in chess, as there's en passant, and that pawns can promote to other pieces. This was my basic introduction to chess for now. In the next episode, we'll discuss how other pieces move, the minor pieces, the bishops, the knights, and the rooks, and then we're set to go to play a game of chess. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you could kind of understand what I was saying, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.